So once we were closed, like everybody else, we all got into a crisis. We were in depression, we panicked. But at some point, we had to sit down in around April and started doing meetings first with our staff to let them know what is COVID and what it means for all of them in terms of the income losses and all. And we prepared our staff psychologically for the journey ahead. The other people we talked to were our parents, and we asked them what did they want us to do. How can we continue offering learning even for the learners back at home? And one of the things we learned is that you have to keep communicating through and through. So we do a lot of virtual meetings. We formed WhatsApp groups for each class, and we did a lot of communication, letting them know every step of the way. The other thing we also did was that we said we will work with our staff and hold their hands. As you know, this was very new for everybody. And even for the staff, they had worries about their future, about their families. And we decided to walk that journey together with them. We actually trained our staff on online, how to conduct online learning. We also facilitated them with gadgets. We bought laptops, and we already had internet connection in the school, so they could come and offer the online learning in the school. Also for the online learning, we also made a consideration for the parents, and we didn't charge them much for the online learning. Because we knew that also families had lost income, and therefore we could not charge them so much, and we charged them a minimal amount. And for us, what guided us through this period was the story in 2 Kings chapter 7 from verse 3 to 20. That is the story of the three lepers in the Bible, that they sat at the gate and they were asking themselves, if we sit here, we will die. If we decide to go into the city, we may die or we may survive. And at that point, we were telling ourselves, if we don't do anything, then we will close completely. But if we attempt to do online, even if we didn't have an idea what online learning was all about, we may survive or we may die. So we decided to actually walk into that city and take the risk and a leap of faith and do the online learning using Zoom and Google Classroom. Now, where are we right now? And when the government announced the first phase of reopening for grade 4 and class 8, that was on Monday, 12th October 2020. It has been such a crisis. It's like we are moving from one crisis into the other one. First of all, the notice was very short that was given by the government to resume learning, and that brought yet another crisis to private primary schools, and not just in Kiambu County, but I know even across Kenya. Schools lacked finances to support the operations and to put in the safety measures that were required. Because obviously we did not anticipate. Remember, before the 12th, there was a presidential address, and the president did not even address the issue of reopening. Then, barely 5 days after, we are told through a memo that actually schools have to open. And we did not have the finances to be able to put in place the safety measures that were required. And this again, it's like we're coming from one crisis. Just when we were settling, we threw into another one. Parents were not committed. Yeah, and that is what we have been seeing even through talking to our colleagues and neighbors. So at first when the grade 4s and class 8s were told to come, because of the COVID second wave, so parents were not sure whether to keep their children in school. In fact, we saw they were paying fees in piecemeal. I remember one of the directors was telling me, they are paying like per week. Yeah? They don't want to commit the whole amount because we were anticipating that schools could be closed anytime. And of course, that actually put us into a real crisis, because how do we operate with that little amount? And yet we only have 2 classes within our schools. And of course, you could not blame the parents. First, because the notice was very short for them to put together the fees, and also because of their uncertainty and the unclear school calendar. And I think up to now, we still don't know what the school calendar looks like. Then immediately after that, for us in private primary schools, there was the NEC assessment. for grade 4 and grade class 8. And immediately we had to administer these assessments. And of course, these children were coming from home. And like I said, even when we did the online classes, they were not attending 100%. Yeah? So there are those who still opted not to do any online classes, and yet they were supposed to report to school and start doing the assessments that were had been prepared by NEC. Of course, we did the assessments. The class 8 went well. Right now, the challenge we are having within our schools is uploading the grade 4 results into the portal. And I think that is what everyone is experiencing. And we are still waiting for the government to guide us. And I know our head teachers and teachers have really been trying hard to upload those things. The aspect of balancing. Remember, 3/4 of our students are still at home. We only have class 8 and grade 4. So the rest of the school is doing online, and only a quarter is doing face-to-face. So you can imagine, even for the school management, trying to balance those two aspects, it's not easy. There's a team that is doing, or some teachers are offering online, and the same teacher has to go and do a face-to-face. And it poses a crisis because, as a teacher, the methodologies and approaches are very different from when you're doing online and the other one when you are doing face-to-face. And this is actually one of the other experiences that we're having. The school transport challenges because of the safety measures that have been put. So you can imagine a bus capacity of 33 having to carry, I don't know whether there are 16 students, because you have to leave a seat in between. And yet they are covering the same distance using the same fuel. And these are real challenges for us private primary schools, especially in our county, Kiambu. And of course, you have to pay the driver, their salaries. There's increased operational costs on food transport versus the few numbers. Remember, we said we had to recall our cooks, we had to recall the security people, we had to recall the office staff and the teachers, and yet we only have a few numbers. Then obviously underutilization of the facilities. So you can imagine, the big schools and only a handful of students are in the school. And this is what we are currently experiencing. What I would say is that despite all these challenges, the pupils and staff are coping very well. And we thank God for there has not been any crisis in any of our private primary schools in Kiambu County so far. And we are praying to God to continue to preserve us so that, we can be remnants as this COVID wave is passing. What are some of the lessons we have learned as private primary schools, especially in Kiambu County? So COVID-19 would provide new opportunities for education systems, particularly in the integration of technology into learning in order to evolve education systems into something fit for the 21st century. So we are saying it's not all doom. If you saw me in March, I didn't know there was anything called Zoom. And you can see even such a meeting like this. All of us directors, we are logged in and we are all following this meeting virtually. So this is a new opportunity that has been created by COVID. And we are saying that even in our education, the use of technology is not going to go away with COVID. And it's something that will continue to enhance even post-COVID. Then there is need for schools to diversify their businesses and create more income streams in order to sustain themselves in times of a pandemic. I think this has been one of the biggest lessons that we have learned as private primary schools, that we don't need to put all our eggs in one basket. Yeah, we were all actually caught up. And you can imagine most of us spend like 100% of our times in the school. And this school has been closed. And you are wondering, what do you do next? This is what even you rely on as a director for your livelihood and for your family and even for the staff. And therefore, this is another big lesson we are learning, that we have to come up with and create more income streams in order to sustain ourselves in times of a pandemic. So putting our eggs in different baskets. The other lesson we are learning is that there is need to strengthen the Kenya Private Schools Association to continue with the advocacy and lobbying role for the case of private schools. I think this is one of the other biggest lessons we have learned. The Kpsa management, the office, they have really been at the forefront trying to fight our case, trying to lobby and advocate within the government. And you have seen what they have been doing since this COVID pandemic came in. And you can imagine, without such an association, we could not all go and present our case. But through the Kpsa, our association, they were able to stand and actually lobby. They have even gone to look for funds for us schools through like the banks and other people who are willing to fund schools. Thank you very much. And I will be happy to hear your feedback through the chat after the presentations, and we'll be able to respond to your questions. Thank you very much for listening to me.
You remember when we closed, it was an abrupt decision. We were given 3 days to close between, I think, Sunday and either Tuesday or Wednesday. So there was a lot of confusion at that particular point. And there are people who got confused completely because they did not even start. They were saying, what do we do after this? There was a lot of optimism because schools were not closed indefinitely. Schools were actually closed for 30 days. And therefore we had the optimism that we are closing early and then we are going to open sometimes in the April month. And that was not to be. Although I'll cover it later on, but I want to say one of the shocks that came through the schools is to realize how short our pockets, our financial pockets are. Our cash flow is not good. So immediately, even in that month of March, what happened is a lot of us got into a lot of cash flow issues. The other thing that we realized also, parents withdrew all the support immediately. The ones who had not paid school fees, they forgot about it and we went on. So after that, we waited for the month of April. But it was clear that it was not going to happen the way it was intended to happen. So people got into a lot of creativity. Some people had already gotten onto some sort of online platforms. We did not know what that meant. Then we started Googling and finding out what there was. And there were a lot of them. And there was a little bit of confusion. But later on, people settled for whatever they settled for. When we started off in May, it was actually very positive. We briefed our parents. Parents were very positive, and it was all going to be temporary because somewhere mid-May, somewhere at the end of May, probably schools will reopen. And that was not to be. June came, and the same momentum went on. It was until the end of June, beginning of July, when things went a little bit berserk. And this was after the announcement by the Ministry of Education that repeating classes was going to happen in the following year. Now, I'm mentioning this specifically for secondary schools because of the age of the learners and the conscious level of the learners. When you tell a grade 2, a class 6 child that they are going to repeat next year, they really don't have the full understanding of that. But when you tell a Form 4 student that they are not going to go to university next year, that they are going to be still in the prison of the school, it was really bad. Form 4 and Form 3s were very seriously affected in terms of attendance of classes. Form 1 and Form 2 sort of were okay. The numbers were higher in class. Form 4, the numbers dwindled almost to a standstill, and Form 3 were following very closely to them. And that was the beginning of it all. Even when we tried with parents, students said, no, I'm not going to school. Why am I going back to school if I'm repeating the whole of next year? So it became a very big problem for us. We continued after that. And as I said, the school learners are much more independent than probably our counterparts in primary school. And I'm saying that because the home situation became very different. And I know a lot of you will bear me witness. They were absolutely mischievous. They could attend class when they are not in class. They could put on their gadgets and disappear and go to the streets. They could put on their gadgets and continue to sleep. And when you tell them to put on the pictures, they would not put on the pictures. They would come in with crazy names like Tarzan, like Joyce. You wonder whether you have girls in a boys' school or boys in a girls' school. And it was a whole lot of a mess. And simply, these were characters we were dealing with. And the uptake started getting a little bit poor. And we even realized, in fact, shamefully, that we have a lot more control on these learners than their own parents at home. Because parents would call you to say, can you wake them up to go to class? We also got reports on these people because when boys are in Form 1, 2, 3, they go up to 18 years. And some of them, because of probably their backgrounds, we even have boys who are 20, girls who are 20, girls who are 19, still in the school system. Now, this is a very particular age because they can get into a lot of things. And we got cases of drugs, general truancy, pregnancies, all these things are things that we're getting from our parents, and they were really destabilizing our programs. Now, in terms of actual learning, syllabus was affected because the speeds were very different. When you're in class, you can follow each child. When you're online, you don't know who is with you and who is quite not with you. So it took a little bit longer. And the classes were a little bit more probably tiring. A lot of people started with normal classes, 8 lessons in a day, 9 lessons in a day. And soon they realized those lessons were too many online for these young brains, and they would switch off. So people changed back maybe to 5, to 4, and enrich them a little bit. So syllabus coverage was tough. We had very specific areas of problems, especially in technical subjects, things like music, things like agriculture, things like computer. How do you teach those purely on online? So it became a bit of a program. But over the time, we discovered how to do some things, but it was not probably to the same level of efficiency. Of course, we had things like mathematics, drawing those diagrams and getting the students to do the same diagrams and all that became a challenge. There were also issues of practical subjects like biology, like physics, like chemistry. And again, it became a challenge because of interaction. But over the time, as Joyce said, it was a learning period. We also learned how to do that, and we became a little bit better with time. I'm telling you that so that you can know the mind of the students in high school who are coming back to school. Some had never attended lessons. Some had been involved in lots of truancy. Some had lost control with their parents at home. Some were not even attending, even when they had paid for it, they were not at the same level with everybody else. So this is the kind of person that we're getting back in school. Now, it was good news that they were coming back, but we were actually worried, who will we get back in school? Now, for high school in particular, the catchment area is unique because in primary schools, a lot of times the catchment area is neighborhood. But in high school, you have people coming from everywhere in the country. And some of us have students coming from outside the country as well. So you don't know who you are expecting to get there. You don't know how they're traveling. You don't know what contacts they're coming with. And it was trouble. But God is good. I think in a lot of schools, the return rate has been high. A lot of students have come back in whatever shape, but they have come back. One of the things that lots of us did was to carry out, because you're finding people who are traumatized. You're finding people, they have not been in school for 6, 8 months, 7 months. And you don't know how home has been for them. And in fact, maybe that's why we have a very high return rate, because they really wanted to run away from home as well. So we started off with psychosocial programs to bring them back to parity with life and to try and understand them from a psychological point of view and tell them this is not torture, this is a necessary step, and you have to go through this for us to succeed next year when we are getting into the examinations. The financial position that was found in school when it was returning was pathetic. Remember when we broke in March, lots of parents had not paid school fees. Remember during the months of online learning, not every parent had paid, although you could see their daughters, their sons in class. And you know what we did? We all gave them bills. We all gave them statements to pay before they start. So that became a big issue. From a financial point of view, what have you been told? You've been told to run the whole school with one classroom. Now, you are making a very positive call to your staff. Schools have opened. Come back, please. In secondary school, unlike the primary schools, when you have one classroom, you need almost 10 teachers to teach them because of the subject combinations. In our grade 4, we only have 2 teachers. In our form 4, I realized I was only going to get rid of 2 teachers or 3 teachers. So I told them, all come, we'll share whatever little that there is. Now, they're sitting there with 4 lessons a week, 5 lessons a week. But they're saying, I've been here the whole day. What are you going to pay me? But the moment you start telling the mathematics of the day that the class is 25% of the whole school, and it also follows that it's 25% of potential school fees paid, and therefore your salary should be 25%, you see the problems. Now, just to mention here, we realize examination is everything in this country, in this current system. The only reason we're able to get back the students in class is because they are promised they will do the exam, and therefore the exam will transition them to the next class. This is something we need to think about in terms of getting out of this. And as I said earlier, we realize directors, we know we are temporary millionaires when the schools open in January, in May, and in September. But we also have realized the precarious situation that we are in because our cash flows are very poor. The moment the school fees is not paid, we started suffering immediately. And as I finish, it had a lot of impact on different people. Directors, as I said, we suffered all of a sudden, even personally, because of your loans or other things that do not relate to the school. A piece of land you had bought knowing school fees will be paid. Vehicles that you had borrowed, you had bought knowing that you're going to pay. We went into a lot of trouble. We've mentioned about the loss of jobs, and learners were the most affected because of the hopelessness they were thrown into. All of a sudden, what they lived for disappeared. Now, I know some of them have gone through things because 6 months is a lot of time, 7 months a lot of time. Some went to work, some tasted other trainings, some tasted salaries, and some of them are now sitting in class, the ones who came back, and they're wondering, what am I doing here without a salary? So it's a situation that we will have to work with. For the future avenues, things to look at, I think we are clear about this. We have realized that the Ministry of Education plus the government are not necessarily the biggest pillar of support that we have. Unfairly so to put. So we need to start making our arrangements knowing that our parents, if they are our parents, are trying to win us out. They're trying to tell us, look for jobs, be on your own because we'll not be there. This is something that we have learned the hard way. We have experienced loss of teachers. For instance, our own personal experience at the Cornerbrook School. We went back to school without 4 teachers. And when teachers leave, they don't leave the worst. They leave the best teachers. So you have a gap of your best teachers leaving, and you have to look for them. Nothing keeps us away from putting up our own examination bodies, get them properly licensed, and we move on. It was disheartening when we saw a lot of other high schools in international curriculums going on their life comfortably. They did their exams at the end of July. They went back in September. They are now sitting for other first-term exams, and they're going on with life. And there was no question about transition because they don't belong where we belong. So probably we need to think deeper as Kenya private schools and come up with solutions. In terms of learning, I'm bringing up this because all the secondary school, even when you meet, you don't want to listen anymore. There are so many salesmen for so many programs. This is even better than what you're using. Even this, you go to another director, they're using a different, more effective. And I'm saying, as Kenya private schools, we need to get together as one pot and look at the best program. Get directors to contribute into it. Produce a KICD type of material and then disseminate that to the private schools. So that everybody who belongs to private schools, we don't have to all create our own wheels. We just go with one program, which is Kenya private schools, and we launch it and we go on. It's going to be better. We choose our best teachers, we put them in there, they do their thing, and we move on with life. It has not been easy. but we are where we are, and we will continue to work together. Thank you very much. That is just a glimpse of what we're experiencing in the high schools, and I'm sure a lot of you are with us. Thank you very much. May God bless you.
My name is Dr. Margaret Kagwe, and I want to say hi to you all protocols observed. I am a director. I am a counseling psychologist, not psychiatrist.
A psychologist.
Yeah, and I am a director of Wambere Wanene School in Kpsa sub-county. I am listening and I am nodding all along as Madam Maura speaks and Mr. Mburu speaks. And I am just bringing together what I've been seeing and what I've been experiencing. Because COVID came and it did what it did. We are talking about finances and our structures in school. But my question as a mental health provider is, what has it done to us on the inside? What cannot be seen by a person? What cannot be described by a person? And that is why I'm standing here, because I came up with something because I realized people are struggling. And that is what Madam Butura is talking about, because I came up with a program to educate people how to look after themselves from the inside. So that even when things are bad, when things are good, you can still remain like hopeful, happy, and you thrive. Because even if we get all the resources that we are looking for, if you are not thriving on the inside, that is why we see a very, very healthy person, they commit suicide because they are not thriving from the inside. So my question here is, so now that we are trying to do all that, what are we doing for the return of teachers, for the return of pupils, for the parents, for the workers, and their mental health? How are we going to make them settle down and start learning again? That is my main question, because children have gone through things. Children have become employees. How are we going to talk to employees? Before they were children. So I am seeing a gap that is looking at me, and I'm asking myself, can I be able to help all the schools that are in Kenya, both private and public? And that is how I came up with the forum for educating mental health champions, so that now we can have eyes of mental health in schools. Every school should have several champions, so that these people can be on the lookout for signs of mental health distress, emotional distress, frustration, and all those things. These people now can be able to refer the same people to us, mental health professionals, for attention that is professional. So for the mental health champions, they will be on the lookout, they will educate people, they will create awareness, they will fight stigma, they will normalize problems like stress. We hide stress because we don't want to be seen like we are stressed. And so what do? You get stressed and more. So we need to normalize mental health issues, so that people can come forward for help and they can be able to speak out on their problems. So that is what we are talking about. I'm going to give you a short lesson here before I just sit down, because I like to do something small. Number one is we have physical health. This is what I call holistic health. We have physical health, we have mental health, and we have spiritual health. And when we talk about physical health, we run to hospitals when we get sick. Somebody can see you are injured, that they'll come and do first aid. And so we have been always looking out for physical health. What about mental health? Nobody can see you are struggling, so people will pass you, and when you see me quieter than normal, you assume I have an attitude today, and so you don't even talk to me tomorrow because you don't know whether my attitude is over. And yet my behavior is a call for help. There's something going on within me, help me. And what do? Because you don't understand what's going on within me, you leave me. So what I'm saying is that when it comes to mental health, the mind is the one that decodes what your body is saying and what your body needs and what you believe. The spiritual health is about what you believe. I believe in opening a school so that I can serve my society. That is your belief. Does that translate to what you do every single day? So there is a lot of incongruence between our beliefs and our actions, and that is why we are ailing. As much as we are trying to deliver, we are not able to feel good ourselves because there is incongruence. So I am requesting that from today we ask ourselves, what are my beliefs? Why did I begin at school? What do I want to achieve? And then your mind will tell you, okay, this action does not go along with your belief, so you cannot be able to execute this behavior. So when we are able to marry all that, then we'll be able to carry out our duties as directors in a way that we are satisfied from within and without. So my question is now, the children will be back. So what shall we do about their experiences on COVID? we will need teachers to be trained as champions. Because when you are training champions, first of all, you help the person to overcome and deal with their own issues so that the person can be ready and available for another person to listen. I want you to imagine teachers who are distressed and then pupils are distressed. What is the scenario we are preparing for? Unless we prepare our teachers, then we are going to have a catastrophe. We are not going to move forward. We are going to remain in the COVID situation unless we prepare for the same. So my request is we come up with a way of ensuring our teachers are trained, their issues are dealt with, even us as directors, so that we are ready and strong enough to support them mentally and emotionally. The physical facilities may be there, but the emotional facilities may not be there. So we need to come up with a way forward. And that is what I'm requesting. And that is what Dr. Madam Butura is talking about. She's talking about preparing your mind so that whatever the situation, you're able to smile and give positive energy. But when you are drained, you don't expect somebody to give what they do not have. When you hear your teacher just saying negative things, it is because in their store, that is all they have. How can we ensure that they have in store positive things that they can give to us and our children? So that is my challenge. I'm not going to speak much because I know other things have to be said. But here I am, I'm available, I'm a director, and I understand you, and I have volunteered myself because I need to save my society the best way I can. Nobody sponsors me, but I just show up and do what I must do. Thank you.
When I look at our accounts, they don't look good. By the time COVID came in Kiambu, only about 13 schools had paid their subscription, their membership. And I'm looking at the things that the head office is doing for us, and that there are a lot of things that they are doing for us. We have seen the benefits of being together. The government is now listening to us. I remember Peter was in the committee that was the education committee that was negotiating on the reopening of schools. And I can assure you that there is a lot that the head office has done for us. We are very much indebted to them. And I know that times have been very tough for you. But mine is to humbly request you to pay up the membership fee so that we can have better representation, so that we can have, our voice can be heard. It has been tough. COVID has really been tough on private schools, but somebody said that when tough times call for tough decisions, this is one of the decisions that we have to make.
We really need to be very creative with whatever we are doing. Boro has talked about the challenges of teachers. Let me say that in Wedan we have 2 campuses, and then we also have IRI. As we do IRI, getting IRI teachers, it is actually not very easy. And then you are teaching maybe like class 8, there are only 2 boys. Then you go to grade 4, it's only 1 child. How do you bring a teacher with one in Wedan Junior and another one in Wedan Valley View? So we decided to be a bit technical. We asked the teacher, now what we do, you are going to teach from your home using Zoom. So we are integrating somehow. Because like even now, there is also another director who told me, my teacher went to a certain school and he was asking me whether he can still teach my school part-time through Zoom. And I told the director, if you can work on the timetable, Martin Boro, why not? Yes. And then he said, when I get time on Saturday or Sunday, I can come and do practicals. And it is working well. So directors, let's not die there. Let's share. Like now with IRA, my IRA is now sorted. Omar teaches from wherever he is. It's just a matter of organizing and rearranging the timetable in such a way that if the 2 schools, they have the same time, they are given the gadgets with the tablets we have, and here the teacher goes. So I think because of this pandemic, there are so many things which are coming on board, which are also actually positive. And Peter is always on me. Madam Butura, we must give these directors the best that they can get, especially at this time. I've seen some directors, they are asking about the loan which was promised. But the Martin Buru has already said, we don't really now, we have realized the government is also struggling. It has its own problems, more than perhaps what we have. So at this juncture, we really need to think aloud and think big.